Single dad carried his unconscious boss to safety. She had him arrested the next morning. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's story, I want to thank you for joining me. If you enjoy stories about unexpected twists of fate, second chances, and the power of truth, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything, and it helps more people discover these incredible stories of human resilience. The handcuffs bit into Marcus Wright's wrists as the police officer guided him into the back of the patrol car. Through the window, he could see his 10-year-old daughter Lily's tear-streaked face as their elderly neighbor Mrs. Patel held her back on their apartment steps. Just yesterday, he had carried his unconscious boss from a burning office building, risking his own life. Today, that same woman had him arrested for assault and attempted kidnapping. "Daddy!" Lily screamed, breaking free from Mrs. Patel and running toward the police car. The officer gently intercepted her. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart," Marcus called out, his voice cracking. "Mrs. Patel will take care of you until I sort this out. I promise I'll be home soon." As the car pulled away, Marcus watched his daughter's diminishing figure in the side mirror. How had saving someone's life turned into the potential destruction of his own? 3 years earlier, Marcus had been a rising star at Meridian Financial Services. With an MBA from a prestigious university and natural talent for investment strategy, he was on track to make partner before his 30th birthday. His wife, Elena, had just given birth to Lily, and they had recently purchased their dream home in the suburbs. Then came the accident. A rainy night, a truck driver who fell asleep at the wheel, and Elena was gone forever. Marcus was left with a 7-year-old daughter, crushing grief, and a mortgage he could no longer afford on a single income while paying for childcare. He sold the house, moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment, and took a significant step down in his career to accommodate Lily's schedule. The prestigious Meridian Financial Services was replaced by Westlake Investments, a smaller firm with more flexible hours but considerably less prestige and lower pay. Victoria Harrington was the CEO of Westlake Investments. At 42, she had built the company from the ground up through ruthless determination and an unwavering focus on the bottom line. She was respected in the industry but feared by her employees. Victoria had a reputation for firing people on the spot for the smallest infractions and showing little empathy for personal circumstances. When Marcus interviewed with her, she made it clear that while she would accommodate his need to leave by 5 p.m. to pick up his daughter, she expected him to make up the hours at home and produce results that matched those of his colleagues who worked longer office hours. "I don't care about your sob story, Mr. Wright," she had said coldly. "Everyone has problems. I care about results. Deliver those, and we won't have issues." For 2 years, Marcus had managed to balance his responsibilities as a single father with the demands of his job. He worked late into the night after putting Lily to bed, often surviving on 4 hours of sleep. His performance reviews were excellent, but Victoria never acknowledged his efforts beyond a curt nod. The day that changed everything began like any other. Marcus dropped Lily off at school, promising to be there for her science fair presentation that evening, and arrived at the office by 8 a.m. The morning passed in a blur of client calls and investment analyses. Around 2 p.m., Marcus smelled smoke. At first, he thought someone had burned popcorn in the break room microwave again, but the acrid scent grew stronger. Then the fire alarm blared through the office. "Everyone evacuate immediately," shouted Gary from HR, rushing through the hallway. "Use the stairs, not the elevators." Marcus grabbed his phone and joined the stream of colleagues heading toward the stairwell. As he passed Victoria's office, he noticed the door was closed. Without thinking, he knocked loudly. "Miss Harrington? We need to evacuate." No response. He tried the handle, it was unlocked. Opening the door, he was hit by a wave of thicker smoke. Victoria was slumped over her desk, unconscious. Marcus rushed to her side, checking for a pulse. It was there, but weak. The smoke was getting thicker by the second, and he could hear the crackle of flames from somewhere nearby. Miss Harrington. Victoria, he shouted, shaking her shoulder. No response. Making a split-second decision, Marcus scooped her up in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, but still a substantial weight for someone to carry down 12 flights of stairs. He pulled his shirt over his nose and mouth and headed for the stairwell. The descent was grueling. By the 4th floor, his arms were burning with fatigue, but he pushed on. Other evacuees stared in shock as he passed them, his unconscious boss in his arms. Do you need help? Someone asked. Just keep going, Marcus gasped. Get yourself out. By the time he reached the ground floor, his lungs were screaming for clean air and his legs threatened to buckle. Firefighters were just entering the building and quickly took Victoria from him, placing her on a stretcher and fitting an oxygen mask over her face. You got her out just in time, one of them told Marcus as paramedics attended to Victoria. Another few minutes in that smoke, and it could have been much worse. Marcus nodded, too exhausted to speak. After being checked by paramedics himself and given oxygen, he was told he could go home. The entire building would be closed for at least a week due to fire damage. His first thought was of Lily's science fair. With the office closed, he could be there early and help her set up. It was the first positive thought in what had been a terrifying day. Before leaving, he approached the ambulance where Victoria was being treated. She was conscious now, coughing but alert. Ms. Harrington, I'm glad you're okay, he said. They're closing the office for repairs. Is there anything you need before I go? Victoria looked at him with unfocused eyes. Who are you? She asked, her voice raspy. Marcus Wright. I work in your investment division. She frowned, then closed her eyes. I'm tired. Leave me alone. The paramedic gave Marcus an apologetic look. She's on some pretty strong medication for the smoke inhalation. She might not be thinking clearly. Marcus nodded and left, assuming Victoria was simply disoriented from the smoke and medication. He had no idea that this brief exchange would lead to his arrest the next morning. Lily's science project on the water cycle won 3rd place. Marcus beamed with pride as she accepted her ribbon, her smile lighting up the school gymnasium. For a few hours, the trauma of the fire faded into the background. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, Marcus received a text from his colleague, Gary. Did you hear about Victoria? She's in the hospital overnight for observation. Doctor says she'll be fine. Management meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Westside Hotel to discuss temporary operations. Marcus replied with a quick thanks for the update and set his alarm. He'd need to ask Mrs. Patel to watch Lily for a few hours in the morning. The knock on his door came at 6:30 a.m. Still in his pajamas, Marcus opened it to find 2 police officers standing in the hallway. Marcus Wright? One of them asked. Yes, that's me. You're under arrest for assault and attempted kidnapping of Victoria Harrington. The words hit him like a physical blow. What? That's impossible. I saved her from the fire yesterday. You have the right to remain silent, the officer continued, pulling out handcuffs. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As they led him away, Lily appeared in the hallway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Daddy? What's happening? The memory of her frightened face was what haunted Marcus most as he sat in the holding cell, waiting to be processed. How could saving someone's life lead to this nightmare? Victoria Harrington had woken up in the hospital with fragmented memories of the previous day. The last clear recollection she had was working alone in her office. Then there were disjointed images, smoke, being carried, unfamiliar hands on her body, a man's face close to hers. The doctor explained she had suffered from smoke inhalation and mild oxygen deprivation, which could affect her memory. When he mentioned that an employee had carried her down 12 flights of stairs, Victoria's fragmented memories coalesced into something sinister. He didn't have permission to touch me, she said firmly. I never saw him enter my office. For all I know, he could have been trying to take advantage of the situation. The doctor tried to explain that the man had saved her life, but Victoria was adamant. She called the police from her hospital bed and filed charges. What Victoria didn't mention was her deep-seated fear of vulnerability. Building her company had required projecting strength at all times. The thought of being carried, helpless, in front of her employees filled her with retroactive humiliation that quickly transformed into anger. Marcus was allowed one phone call. He contacted his sister, Rachel, who lived 2 hours away. "I need you to come take care of Lily," he explained, his voice tight with emotion. "And if you can, find me a lawyer. I can't afford much, but this is serious." Rachel promised to be there as soon as possible and to bring her husband, who had a friend who practiced criminal law. The next 24 hours were the longest of Marcus's life. He was fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in a cell with 2 other men. One was sleeping off a drunk and disorderly charge, the other was silent and watchful in a way that made Marcus's skin crawl. By the time Rachel's brother-in-law's friend, attorney James Morales, arrived, Marcus was desperate for any help. "This is one of the strangest cases I've ever heard," Morales said after listening to Marcus's story. "Normally, saving someone's life doesn't result in criminal charges. Can you get me out of here? My daughter. I'm working on bail now. The charges are serious, but you have no prior record, strong community ties, and the circumstances are unusual. I think we can get you released today." True to his word, Morales secured bail by that afternoon. The conditions included no contact with Victoria Harrington and wearing an ankle monitor until the preliminary hearing. When Marcus finally walked out of the police station, Rachel was waiting with Lily, who launched herself into his arms. "Daddy! Mrs. Patel said you were a hero and saved someone from a fire. Why did the police take you away?" Marcus held his daughter tight, meeting his sister's concerned gaze over Lily's head. "Sometimes grown-up things get complicated, sweetheart. But it's going to be okay." He wished he believed his own words. The next few days were a blur of legal consultations and trying to maintain normalcy for Lily's sake. Marcus received an official termination letter from Westlake Investments, citing his arrest as grounds for immediate dismissal. "They can't do that," Morales said when Marcus showed him the letter. "Not legally. But fighting a wrongful termination suit while dealing with criminal charges would be spreading yourself too thin. Let's focus on clearing your name first." The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, news of the arrest had spread through the financial community. Former colleagues avoided his calls, and a job interview he had scheduled was abruptly cancelled. "They Google you and find the arrest record," Rachel explained gently. "Nobody cares about innocent until proven guilty when it comes to hiring." The night before the hearing, after Lily was asleep, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with Rachel and her husband, Tom. "What if I go to prison?" he asked, voicing his deepest fear. "What happens to Lily?" "That's not going to happen," Rachel said firmly. "James is good at his job, and the truth is on your side." "The truth doesn't always win in court," Marcus replied bitterly. "No, but sometimes it gets help," Tom said, sliding a USB drive across the table. "I have a buddy who works in building security for your office complex. I asked him to pull the footage from the day of the fire." Marcus stared at the small device. "Is that legal?" Tom shrugged. He followed proper channels. "It's evidence in a criminal case. James can subpoena it officially, but this way, you can see what you're dealing with first." The footage was grainy but clear enough. It showed Marcus entering Victoria's office, emerging moments later with her unconscious form in his arms, and making his way to the stairwell. There was nothing ambiguous about it, he was clearly rescuing her from danger. "This changes everything," Marcus breathed. "She can't possibly maintain her story with this evidence." The preliminary hearing was held in a small courtroom with just the judge, the attorneys, Marcus, and Victoria present. Victoria sat rigidly on the opposite side of the room, refusing to look at Marcus. When the security footage was presented, Victoria's face drained of color. Her attorney requested a brief recess, during which Marcus could see them engaged in intense conversation. When court resumed, Victoria's attorney addressed the judge. "Your Honor, in light of the new evidence, Ms. Harrington wishes to withdraw her complaint. It appears there may have been a misunderstanding due to her medical condition at the time." The judge fixed Victoria with a stern look. "Ms. Harrington, do you understand that filing false charges is a serious offense?" Victoria's composure cracked slightly. I genuinely believed I was in danger, Your Honor. The smoke inhalation affected my memory and perception. I now see that Mr. Wright was attempting to help me." The judge nodded slowly. "Given the circumstances and the clear evidence of rescue rather than assault, I'm dismissing all charges against Mr. Wright." He turned to Marcus. "Mr. Wright, you are free to go with the court's apologies for your ordeal." Outside the courtroom, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Rachel hugged him tightly, while Morales shook his hand. "It's over," the attorney said. "The arrest will still be on your record, but we can file for expungement given the dismissal of charges." As they were preparing to leave, Victoria approached them, her attorney hovering nervously behind her. "Mr. Wright," she said stiffly, "I owe you an apology." Marcus looked at the woman who had nearly destroyed his life. Part of him wanted to walk away without a word, but he thought of the example he wanted to set for Lily. "I accept your apology," he said simply. Victoria seemed taken aback by his response. I was disoriented. The doctor explained that oxygen deprivation can cause paranoia and confusion. I truly believed I was in danger. "You were in danger," Marcus replied. "From the fire." "Not from me." She nodded, looking uncomfortable. "My attorney has prepared a settlement offer. For the inconvenience." Morales took the envelope she extended. "We'll review this and respond accordingly." As Victoria walked away, Rachel muttered, "Inconvenience? Is that what she calls having you arrested and destroying your reputation?" "Let it go," Marcus said. "I just want to move forward." The settlement offer was substantial, enough to cover Marcus's legal fees, provide a cushion while he job hunted, and start a college fund for Lily. It came with a non-disclosure agreement, which Morales advised him to sign. It's standard in these situations. You can't discuss the details of the settlement, but you're not prohibited from stating that the charges were dismissed due to evidence proving your innocence. Marcus signed the papers, more relieved to have the ordeal behind him than grateful for the money. Finding a new job proved challenging despite the dismissal of charges. The financial industry was small and gossipy, and the story of his arrest had spread widely. Several promising interviews ended with polite rejections. 2 months after the hearing, Marcus received an unexpected call from Gary, his former colleague at Westlake Investments. "Victoria's gone," Gary said without preamble. "She sold the company to Meridian Financial. They're restructuring everything." Marcus's former employer had acquired Victoria's company. The irony wasn't lost on him. "I'm sorry to hear that," Marcus replied, unsure why Gary was telling him this. "Don't be." The new management team reviewed all terminations from the past year. Yours stood out, obviously. They want to meet with you. The meeting was scheduled for the following day. Marcus dressed in his best suit, kissed Lily goodbye at school, and headed to his former office building, now repaired after the fire. The new managing director was Charles Pemberton, who had been a senior partner when Marcus worked at Meridian years earlier. "Marcus Wright," Charles said warmly, shaking his hand. "It's been too long. I was sorry to hear about your wife. And this recent unpleasantness." "Thank you, sir." Charles gestured for him to sit. "I'll be direct. We've reviewed your performance records from both Meridian and Westlake. Impressive work, especially considering your